This podcast may include domestic violence, child abuse, and other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. Justice as a Woman is intended for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult a licensed professional for legal matters.
Welcome, everyone tuning in today. We have a guest who's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This woman is quite remarkable. She dedicates her life to sharing free legal advice, calling out the injustice in the family court system, being a true advocate for those who need and seek out information. Maryann, Petri, it's so lovely to have you on.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great to see you.
Maryann has been through quite the battle the past 6 years, divorced and co-parented for a better part of 10 years successfully. Then all of a sudden, everything went belly up. That was when your battle began. Maryann is a published author with 4 books available, which is quite remarkable as well. Maryann, you were so brave. First of all, so brave to speak out. So brave to shed light on all this injustice because most people are scared of ramifications, more legal ramifications, and scared of the other side, right? The revenge, the perpetrator, all those things. At the beginning of your battle, because when I talk to women I'm coaching, the fear of court looming over them is almost unbearable. They can't fathom it. They can't take it. If you were to backtrack to the very beginning, can you talk about that? Like how you felt about that?
With my attorney already explained that there was collusion between the opposing attorney and the judge. And let's get the judge recused. So I tried, and he screamed at me from the bench. And he says, I know this case better than anyone else. But I'm thinking, we just started this. How would you know anything? But I wasn't, for some reason, I was not afraid because I had 2 attorneys with me. But I didn't know they were going to torpedo the case.
Right. And that's the thing. Most people feel like, and this is what I hear too, over and over, oh, I'm going to get the best attorney. I'm going to pay I don't care what it costs. And right, that is not true, as you have learned and as we've all learned.
There's no such good legal advice. So my attorney told me to write the judge up to the AOPC for his involvement with the opposing attorney. And when I did that, he yelled at me even more. So the judge was retaliating. That somehow, I just didn't know what to think of that, to be honest with you. I just stared at him.
But how did you know that they were in collusion so early on? This is something no one would have any idea.
Yeah, my attorney told me. He said, you know what? They worked in the DA's department for 3 to 4 years. So let's try to file a motion to get him recused, and you write up a complaint to the AOPC, where we report judges here in Pennsylvania.
Let's just clarify recuse, because that some people who are listening might not know what that means.
That means that you're trying to get him off the bench and have another judge step in.
I think going into this very naive, a lot of people, of course naive, why would you know this business? Why would, you live your life and you don't know anything about family court, and then you're hit with it. And this is the scariest part. And people don't understand and know that it is a game. It is a lot of manipulation. It is the best story wins. And winning is such a tough word. Lawyers say winning, but I don't like that word actually, because there's no winning actually.
No, there isn't.
No winning on either side. What gives you strength to never give up? 6 years of battling, and then there's still things that are going on, I heard.
Right. I just wanted to give up. The one night, I just wanted to give up on everything. But then something said, you have to stay alive to irritate your ex. So that's what I did. Who would have thought my podcast would have come out of this in a tell-all book?
That's the fire. Wow. I love that about you. That is so amazing. I'm laughing because so many times I'm talking to people I'm consulting and I'm like, you need the fire. If you were to give advice to someone listening, because a lot of us, and we're victims and we feel defeated. And in your case, I guess there was separation. You had the 10 years between breaking up, and often this is very close, right? Someone has been abused, or there's been all these circumstances. And so you're still in a victim mode. It's hard to get that fire because you still have been beaten down for so long. That is the challenge, where to get that impetus to fight, to not stop.
I just could not take no for an answer when you know the judge is wrong. So when the judge is wrong, I have to correct that. And I had been a nurse for 23 years. They were trying to destroy my career, which they did, but we did win a pension fund in the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, and my attorney helped with that. But then I won the Superior Court win of the child support issue, 406 WDA 2017, Pennsylvania. And that was the game changer in a way.
Congratulations. That's incredible. I hope that more people congratulate you because what you have done and what you've continued to do is it's not only brave, like I pointed out, but it's actually remarkable.
Thank you.
Because you're welcome. There are closed doors everywhere. I know it. I experienced it. The most maddening thing for me is if the judge doesn't like you and they decide that they're not going to take your side for whatever reason. One attorney I had on here chatting, she said, I said, how do you know that the case isn't going to go well? She says, as soon as a woman walks into my office, I already know we are disadvantaged. There is a lot of sexism. Obviously, it feeds through everywhere, family court too, and what have you.
See, all these cases are multifaceted and they're all convoluted. Everybody's case is. This is why it's so hard to stay in order with a lot of this, plus the trauma you've been through to keep it together. I think one of the worst parts of the story is when we were co-parenting well, I had gotten divorced at the end of 2004, but I had set him up on a date with this woman who I'm not sure if I knew she worked in the courthouse or not. I really can't remember. But we were friendly. You know, we didn't talk on the phone every day. She was an acquaintance. So I set her up, you know, and called him up on his birthday, and they talked for 4 hours on the phone. She moved in 2 weeks, and in 7 months, they were married in 2007. And I thought, pretty fast, and I don't think that's fair to the kids.
That's a red flag too. Doesn't that scream love bombing?
Yeah.
Doesn't that scream narcissist?
Right.
Because we all know that pretty well.
Yeah, the kids were telling me, "Oh, dad bought her this bracelet. Dad bought," you know, it's like, I don't care. I really didn't care because thank God as a nurse I was making decent money. He and I had agreed on amount of child support. I could care less what he was doing with his life, but I did tell him, you better have her sign a prenup since he's a vice president of a company. He wouldn't do it. He said she's going to take everything anyway. And that's an odd comment because I didn't. I let him have the house. I did not want alimony. I just told him I just need some help because I have never been on my own. And we agreed on the amount of $600 a month in child support.
With 3 kids, wow,
Right.
yeah.
His new wife did not like him coming over helping me if there was an issue, like if a toilet was clogged. Okay. Those were the stipulations, like if I needed help, because he could fix things and like that. If I didn't have a boyfriend to help me, conversations, one on the phone where she said casually, I know a lot of people in the courthouse and I'm friends with all the judges.
That is a big threat.
Yeah, I didn't know how to take that. I was
Absolutely.
like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, you just don't know where people's heads
No.
at. There's so much dysfunction and mental problems, sort of like you, how you just call things out. In terms of psychology, I like to call things out. I had a perpetrator who is a pure sociopath. I'm complete Machiavellian, very cleverly manipulates and people believe his stories, including judges and everything. You just don't know where they're at. You could be with someone, our relationship was fairly short. It's perfect for narcissism and this kinds of trait, love bombing and all that. Gee, love bombing feels
Yeah.
good. Until it doesn't. But something I wanted to touch on with you is the parent alienation, because I have a different point of view of it in terms of I was accused of
Me
it.
too.
Oh, there you go. My perpetrator went after my baby when she was 9 days old, claiming I was suicidal and went for sole custody, sole possession at 9 days old. I have never taken an antidepressant drug in my life. never been suicidal. But, people listen to that. Let's talk about parent alienation because there's twofold, right? It seems like it's used as a weapon. Often the other party will use it to try to get alarm bells going. And then, so it was accused of you, but you were co-parenting.
Right, we were co-parenting up until there was an emergency petition. And we're like, what the heck? And there was one emergency petition first where he said that I was mentally ill and the middle child was mentally ill. Therefore, he wanted custody of only one child, not the other two. That did not happen. That was in 2013, I believe. And the judge wasn't buying it. On top of that, it was the day of his birthday, so he lost his case. However, there was an indication of emotional abuse on November 12th, 2014, which is ironically my new husband and our wedding anniversary date. That led to the president judge, who should have known better, to have recused himself a long time ago. They went before him and they were saying I was dangerous, and oldest was with CPS, but not the younger two. And he's saying, why didn't you remove them in November of 2014? Why are we here in March of 2015? So he could have nipped that in the bud right then and there, but he chose not to because there's money in family court.
How old are the children at
The
this
oldest
point?
was 16, going to be 17 in a couple months. And that was the pot stirrer. And the boys were tweens, 12 to 13, 13 going on 14.
It seems crazy, though, that children at that age, they have a voice. They should have a voice. They should be speaking. If there's some sort of abuse or something that you're getting accused of, wouldn't it be obvious? Wouldn't the children, they've gone this far in their life and nothing's happened until this moment, and now you're getting accused of this. Did they have a voice? Were they able to speak and do an affidavit?
So he had them sequestered with the attorneys and the transcription. And my oldest son told him what he wanted. And the judge twisted his words, and they were all coming out of that sequestered room. The kids were still in there. But my attorney ran over to me and she said, the judge just twisted your son's words. I'm like, this stepmother had an agenda. As I look back, she always wanted to be a nurse, I was told. So there was jealousy there. I had kids. She could never have kids. She had been married for 22 years and could never have kids. So there was jealousy there. But I don't understand why a grown-ass woman would want a bunch of teenagers around with.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Because our schedule, 5 days on, 5 days off. So you would think she'd be thrilled to see them go on day 5 back to mom. Bye. But no, she wanted the full custody. I know this is going to sound mean, but she is not bright at all. But she thought she was going to get child support out of me. They were going to try to flip the narrative.
Money is a big driver. That's what happened to me. I was quite successful. My perpetrator was not, didn't make as much as I, and he thought he would get a lot of money. And his attorney saw dollar signs. I remember she said to me in court, she asked me, when I was being questioned at one point, his attorney, don't you make $100,000 a post on Instagram? I looked at her and I thought, well, I'm not Kim Kardashian. First of all, I didn't make any money off my Instagram other than just sharing work I'd done, the celebrity work and what have you and all that. They saw dollar signs. He lured her in telling her, we're going to make millions out of her. They were trying to get me mentally locked up. They were trying to put me in prison. They had death threats. It was so hard because it's all about money. Money is huge.
Right. Because when we first started off, I don't know why the opposing attorney is allowed to throw out these false narratives that she's alienating the kids from the father and she's mentally ill. And they all just ran with like buffaloes to a pond. And I'm like,
with no concrete evidence. I have to say, one thing I do really appreciate about Australia and coming here through the court system was, oh, you say the mother's suicidal? Because this story was running on that I had psychotic episodes and all this rubbish. And, oh, you say the mother's suicidal? How do we know? How do we know she's suicidal? We talk about child protection services next, but he had an order that he was able to get the Australian government on board with him to have an order to come and take a 4-month-old baby, breastfed baby from me and put her in child protection services because apparently the mother is dangerous, suicidal, and has psychotic episodes. We went in front of the judge. Thank goodness for the Australian court system.
Wow.
The judge here said, how do we know this about the mother? Baby stays with mama until we find out. Go prove it. My barrister said, well, we have no evidence of her ever being suicidal, ever taking any medication, everything. She says, this is ridiculous. Go find out and come back. Thank goodness. Because not in America, though.
No.
Not in America.
No, he had more money than me because he was vice president of a company. However, he told the courts he was now floor manager. Because we all know vice presidents get fired and thrown on the street. They don't get demoted to floor manager.
And that's the awful thing, that everyone believes this. This is what just drives me completely insane, is the words on a page and you believe it. Where are the expert witnesses? Where are the expert reports? Okay, those things cost a lot of money, I know, because I had to do all
Right.
that. But at least I could do it. At least I could get forensic tech to prove that they were doing falsified service. By the way, this is rampant in the US, falsifying
Mhm.
service, then just going in saying, yes, they've been served, and the person doesn't show up because they haven't been served and they don't know anything about it, which happened to me, and they show up, they get a default judgment. They weren't served. They did falsifying service, Photoshop and everything. I had to pay $6,000 to get a forensic tech to prove that it was all Photoshopped and everything. I pulled it up in the metadata and you could see Photoshop elements. In one of my court documents, she purposely left out a letter in my name so that if the court sent it to me, that it wouldn't go to me. Then they substituted service somebody else who has no connection with me. And then the judge accepted that. One important thing, actually, I would say for anyone in the US is sign up for the court alert. So if your name ever shows up, that you get an alert to your email. In California, there's the Court Connect. Sign up for the court system so that if your name gets triggered in any lawsuit, any serving, anything that goes into the clerks, you'll get a notification. So that's something really important, I think, for people to know. Have you heard of people having this experience too?
Yes. So they didn't know they were supposed to, and their kids are taken away. That's simple.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw in May in the New York Post, there was a woman, she was in the New York court system, a very crazy custody battle. She went into dark depression. She lost her 2 little girls. She ended up committing suicide. She went to Switzerland to commit suicide, but she lost her children. As a mother, look, I can't speak for fathers. I know fathers do have very strong connections to their children as well.
The good one.
Yeah, there are good men. There are a little few and
Right.
far between, but there are good men. For a mother to lose her little children, I just think there is nothing worse in this. I don't know if there's much. I guess there's other things that are pretty awful in this world, but that is probably up there as one of the most traumatic, awful things. And so this woman did take her life. That was in May, a New York Post article. Very sad.
Right. She was very prominent. In fact, she had cancer and she had beat it. And I thought, oh, good, she beat it. It came back probably with all the stress he was putting her through, is my guess.
Of course.
And wanted to be with her. The one was running away to her house. And then, of course, you get in trouble. If the kid runs away and comes to you, you're the one who gets in trouble.
It's so sad.
Yes. Yeah.
This person you interviewed is the son of a woman with cancer. It reminds me of that. He was talking about the fact that going through this level of stress, your children, your heart, to have them and the threat of them, to have them torn away and separated from you. He talked about the illnesses, terrible illnesses because of this. I believe it. Absolutely.
Definitely.
I believe it.
So that was Jay Hughes. Right. He was absolutely right. Everything. And I'm so sorry they're going through that.
It is so sad, but that is the truth. So I wanted to touch on the fact that you lost your job and then you got in trouble for no child support, because here your children get taken away from you and now you were supposed to give child support. You lost your job and you couldn't. And what happened there?
As soon as that judge announced he had full custody, the first thing he did the next day is run down and file child support. And I didn't know what that was I got a letter in the mail and going, what is this? So I called down to domestic relations. I said, what does this letter mean? Because I'm so naive. And they said, oh, and they were laughing. They said, as soon as that judge signed that custody order, he ran down here the next day and filed child support on you. I thought, oh, good to know. What happens here in America is arrears rack up from 2015 then to 2017. Also, the child support judge illegally tacked on $3,000 onto the arrears. So she brought it up to 15,000. Then he holds a child support contempt hearing and she wants $2,000 right now. It was a pension fund I won, which was over like around $2,800. I did have the money. He just wouldn't pay it out. The ex refused to pay it, went to jail. I went up to the sheriff's office and they were like shocked to see me. My brother-in-law brought me. And so I went in and I was not really afraid because it's like, it's me and a bunch of guys. So I'm going to go in a paddy wagon with a bunch of guys, but there's a separating bar, that. And so the guard said, no, you're on this side, they're on that side. So we drove in there and it's really not jail. It says prison. However, my ex was telling my sons that I was going into a really nice place like Martha Stewart and I was going to knit and play tennis all day.
Oh my goodness, how long were you there?
She wanted me in there for 2 months and I wanted to show her I could do it because she's not going to get any money out of me because I don't have it. And you're not going to get it out of my current husband. Those aren't his kids. It was the principle of the matter.
So you spent 2 months in there?
I tried. I would not give me my prescribed medication, which is a human rights violation. Happens to prisons all over the globe, not just in Erie, Pennsylvania. However, I was getting very sick. I was vomiting everywhere, going into withdrawals. So I called my 79-year-old father and I said, I don't know if I could come out of here in a body bag. Could you pay the purge amount of $2,000? And I explained how to do it. I also told the prison nurse I was having chest pain and it was radiating my jaw. Being a cardiology nurse, I would know that. They don't care to take you. I asked to go to the ER and I go and get checked out. The guard answered, we don't do that here. And I thought, ooh, God's going to deal with you someday. But I got out. My dad thankfully got me out and I went home and took 2 showers because I didn't know if I was exposed to bed bugs or what. But
wow. That's so wild. And that was all for money.
Money, yeah. You think about attempted murder, and when there's a winning in Superior Court, that money should have been paid.
So let's talk about child protection services. Oh my golly gosh.
They have to be abolished. We don't need them. No one needs them in any country. This is a global problem. They need to go, and we should utilize the police services. And they should have more training on false accusations, where these parents are calling in one false accusation after another, just like me, to cause me to lose my job or actually career as a registered nurse. They are out of control. This is a human rights violation.
Yes, it is a human rights violation. I experienced it. I know other people who have experienced it. I hear your story. It is a power trip. I guess they're funded somehow. Look, this is a lot about money and control and power. And as we all know, it is amazing that you fought them. I would say let's just hats off to you being so strong. Because when people are going through this and they are attacked by what they would consider to be professionals, the law, this person is in charge and I should respect them and I'm supposed to do what they say. You just listen to what you're able to be present and listen and say, no, hang on a second, that's not right. So I think that's the main point here is being present and saying, wait, does that ring true? And knowing that you can do something about this because you did. Every time that you were accused, you were able to overturn that through the child protection services I'm talking about.
I had a good attorney, at that time. I was with her and another attorney. She was on the ball. She said, okay, you've got this indication. We have to submit for a hearing within X amount of days. So you can get cleared so you can work with kids. Other than that, you're on the child abuse registry with all the pedophiles, okay? So this is very important to get your name cleared.
That's very intense.
Yeah,
That's very intense. To be accused of things that you haven't done, that can send you in a spiral right there.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I did not need an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety until all this started. I was happy-go-lucky, go to work as a nurse, take care of people in the ER. I was a cardiology nurse as well. I had a good time in the ER, some's not. But to have them pull you out of that and pull your career down and then start turning your kids against you at the same time. And then, I don't know if I had mentioned this earlier, but when the judge reversed from 50-50 to him having sole custody, his wife and her three sisters, which one of them also worked in the courthouse, and her mother and the grandparents jumped up and down, laughing, whooping, clapping, and cheering. And it's like my lawyer looked at me and I'm like looking at her, and it's like, well, is he gonna slam the gavel? That's why I call my podcast Slam the Gavel, because he never did.
Wow. Now, you mentioned you did take some antidepressants because you needed it, and I get that. I understand. However, I see it now with clients. You could be accused of being depressed or what have you, and then that could be turned against you as well.
True.
So even trying to get help, whether it's psychologist or antidepressants or something, even trying to get some help to be able to even just survive this for your children and try to be at peace with them could be turned against you to say, look, she has anxiety. Look, she's unfit mother. She's got depression. Were you nervous of that?
No, let them have it. Are you going to report me? The opposing attorney said. I said, well, let's see how you do today. He said, you reported my wife and you reported the CPS caseworker and you even reported the judge. I said, well, when I was a nurse and something wasn't done right by a patient, that nurse got reported or that doctor got reported. I stood up for my patients and I stand up for myself. At that time, he said, what are you on? Very nasty. At that time, it was only on 0.25 of Ativan, right? It's only like this minute of it really just a crumb. So when I got home from my shift, I could sleep and be up by 6:30 to get the kids. Operated like that for years. It's not a big deal. But they made it a big deal, so they make you get a psych eval. So $400 later, this guy was brilliant. And I had court, and I had called him the night before, and I left a message, could you please show up? And he did. He came lumbering down the hall and was like, thank God he's here. And he shot down the whole opposition. Did it matter? No. Even when the attorney said, so Maryann's mental health is declining, he said, no, it's not declining. Their rigged case, they wanted their false narrative to go their way.
And it didn't matter. This is what's infuriating. It didn't matter. I remember there was an attorney that I consulted with in New York, and she said to me that she said, I don't know so much about Pennsylvania, but I know a lot about California and New York. She said she has a mother, the father is in prison for being a pedophile, and he still gets visitation. He still gets supervised visitation. That should be a no-go. That should be, you're in prison for that's it.
Yep.
You're done. You're done. At this point, you're not, the word father is earned. Right? The word parent is earned. The fact that is some DNA in a child does not grant visitation. This has gone so haywire. Yes, I love that you make people accountable. The accountability that the court system have is like a big fat zero. And I love that you are making them accountable by reporting. And some of that reporting has worked, hasn't it? You've actually got somewhere with that.
Yes. Okay, so with this family court judge, I couldn't make him go away. And I was stressed out. And I'm saying, God, you deal with him. Please, God, deal with him. I can't. He's only letting me see the kids every other weekend. He wrote a no contact order for all holidays and Mother's Day. Who does that?
That's revenge. That's just revenge. This is your mother. You're preventing the mother from seeing that. And they've lived with you 50-50 or while you're married. And then there is no sense of this. I agree with you. It should be removed. Actually, I remember somewhere else that you had said that you believe there's no need for family court. That was an interesting take that you have on that. Can you tell us what you think that would be the best solution?
Well, to civil court, where a parent can have a jury if they want to pay for it. It's not like they have to run juries all day. Some cases wouldn't need one, but I think it could shorten the case and not drag things out. I believe the attorneys are more at fault than the judges are doing that, because my opposing attorney was constantly filing a continuance, doing this, dragging it out, and my children paid for it.
I know this continuance and this dragging things out and costing more money, the cost for these families where that money could go into children and their education or their life. People are going in massive debt to try to what they feel is protecting their children, or the feel as they're fighting against this perpetrator. It was an interesting situation in my case. I don't know how he was funding that. I think we won't get into what I think was going on there. But because I'm not sure how he funded that. I've heard many cases it's 500,000, 600,000 and things like this.
Oh, yes.
So just the money is absolutely insane.
Well, swiping charge cards. So I racked up like 40,000 in charge cards. It was between 30 and 40, something like that. So, I had to consolidate that. Even though we've paid that off, it still haunts you. That's
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
because it's still, even the credit score, it still shows up as public debt. Weird.
Yeah. Oh, I have a funny little story. My ex, when I left, other than also looting my property and stealing everything and all my businesses and all the equipment and computers and all that, he also turned on every light, air conditioning. He turned on the pool heating. He racked up a DWB bill that I couldn't afford to pay. That was the highest bill I've ever seen in my life, just so he could ruin my credit.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know about it for months and months later. Could be 6 months later. I didn't know about the bill because I'd left. And then they had no way of contacting me. And I found out later, and it was just a bill I couldn't pay. So they try to flush you out.
Right.
I think it's just stay resilient.
It was resilient.
People.
Yes, when it came to the child support, when they were expecting 8 to 900 something a month, I couldn't pay it. My job was gone. In fact, when I went to a child support conference with his attorney and him sitting there, they never gave me eye contact. They're always looking down. And I said, "Hey, who's the ding dong that called the second indication of emotional child abuse? Because now I really can't work. Where do you think this money's going to come from?"
Have some guilt or
No.
not? They're looking down.
Oh no, they're very callous. These are sociopath, psychopathy. But I said, "Guys, why don't you look at me in the eye? Come on, guys." His attorney, because I do have a lazy eye from a blow to the head, his attorney said, "Which eye? You are trampling on my ADA rights." Of course, nothing happens to him.
No, nothing. That's the thing. No recourse on this.
Except with the judge. I did get recourse.
Okay.
After my judge died, wanted me to run another custody hearing because they wanted to go back to 50-50 like we had been for the last practically 10 years. So I said, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I went down to the conciliatory office, and his attorney showed up and he was ticked off. And so I gave the hearing officer my evidence as to why we need this hearing. And he didn't like it. He slammed his briefcase together and he said he was tired of this ridiculousness, and he stomped out. And the officer, the look on her face, her eyes like, oh, she said, this is about the kids. And it's not for him. I don't know what his problem is, So we got this hearing. I subpoenaed everybody, even my sons, because they wanted to go talk on the witness stand because the judge twisted his words earlier. So I did subpoena everybody, ready to go. As I said, the judge died of pancreatitis from too much at Erie Club, right? So watching a man come out onto the bench who I thought was 90, he actually is older than his stated age. And he said, "Did you pay the opposing attorney, I think it was $1,500? And I said, "No. I never even got a bill, to be honest with you. I never got a bill." And so I said, "No." He said, "Well, then I'm just going to keep your case exactly the way it is." And I said, I was also looking around because my boys were not present. And I wanted to say more, but he got up off the bench and he carried my file that was like this thick, and he walked off the bench, and I yelled at him. I said, "Your Honor, my children are being neglected." He just kept walking. So there was no due process. What I did find out was the night before that hearing, there were 3 men that met in the Erie Club, and they discussed how they were going to quash that hearing One of them was the opposing attorney. I don't know who the other 2 guys were. I used to know who the one was, but we don't know who the 3rd man was. I don't know. But they watched it, and
Drinking buddies.
yeah, they were all, friends of friends of friends, and when I picked up my sons a couple hours later, I didn't say my son said, "Mom, was there court today?" And I said, "Yes, there was. Where were you?" And he answered, "Dad said it was canceled." I said, "No, we all were there. Grandma, Grandpa, Tina, all my friends were there. We were waiting for you." And we just drove quietly home, back to my house.
That is so sad. I was almost going to say he's so old, he's probably super sexist, that old man, but it's not. It's collusion. And like you said, drinking buddies. This is how I look at it with my people that I work with now is if you know this in advance, then figure out who's drinking with who, whatever. You have to know the game, figure it out. Just don't go with any
Right.
representation. It's so important. You just don't go with, oh, she's very compassionate. I don't care. If your attorney is a son of a bitch and they're yelling at you and they're nasty, that's probably the better attorney. Do not go with an attorney just because they have a good bedside manner. You have to have an attorney that knows people and is in there drinking after hours with everyone. Corruption, but you got to get in there. You got to get in there with them. Do not have a clean attorney. So I do want to tap on the fact that you are remarried and you do have a partner. How hard was that? How hard was that to deal with all of this and also your relationship and separating those and still being able to keep a healthy relationship at home with your partner, going through all of that too? That's a challenge.
Luckily for him, he's a union steam fitter, local 449 out of Pittsburgh. And
And what is that for those
steam
listening who
fitters,
wouldn't
they
know?
work on, HVAC, things like that. Their jobs are very dangerous. He's worked out of town his whole life. Since he was 18, he always went after the jobs that made the most money, and those were the ones out of town. My boys gravitated to him. They loved him. I mean, there was no issues because I figured if my kids have issues with whoever, then I move on to the next person or, whatever, or alone, I guess. We did very well because he did work out of town. That was even held against me in the CPS report, which was just crazy that I blamed my ex because my current husband is working out of town. That makes no sense. He's done it since he was 18. Okay. So whenever we talked on the phone, he'd say, okay, what happened in court? We would only talk about it for 10 minutes, drop that conversation. How was work? What's the weather like? Then he'd drive home on weekends. We would, you know, go have ice cream, go to a movie, and we would still carry on and just function. Your relationship will suffer if you keep harping on it. You can't harp on it. You can't let that dominate your happiness. It's going to be hard to be happy when you have personality disorders that are disrupting your life, destroying your child's minds, turning them against you, all these things happening, but you've got to keep going.
That's the key here. I think that what we can take away from chatting to you today is just keep going and get that strength. Get that strength from anywhere that you can, whether it's in faith or spirituality or family, friendships, nature, wherever you can get some strength from. Boxing.
Hey,
Go to the
right, I have a friend that
boxing
does
gym,
that. Yes.
wherever you can get some strength from, because this stuff is hard. And we're not minimizing that in any way because it is really hard. What is an overall goal for you with speaking out and your podcast and everything? What would be your overall goal? What would be your best outcome?
I would like to see more parents speak out. The first book I wrote is more of a handbook to help people get through family court. It's not some huge manual, but it's not a pamphlet. But I'd like to see family court dissolved. I would like to see Title for B, D, and E repealed because those are your money makers that keep the courts going and the funding going that destroy children's lives as well as parents. I mean, this caused me to have a heart attack. Don't go pro se. If you think you can handle it, do it. I never tell someone not to. If they feel they have to do it, do it. My dad said, if you go pro se, you know what that means. That I'm crazy. Well, I'm crazy enough to try. Crazy like a fox to win 2 cases out of 3 in Superior Court. So go.
You know what? You're a mother. Any mother there to protect her child can be called crazy or whatever else you want to call it. But that is the mother bear. That's the mama bear in you. tap into that. That fight within you is for your children. Recently, I had a client that said, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And I said, this is for your child. This is for your child. This is not about you. I think if you get strength from that, knowing that this is for them, they can then later in life realize what you've done and what you're doing, and they'll have that fight in them. If you can have the fight in you, then they will inspire to have the fight in them, because they'll have fights in their life.
Right.
Everyone is going to have
I
some stuff they have to
definitely.
deal
I
with.
also tell parents to do as much court watching and help out with that as much as they can do, because parents need help with more eyeballs in that courtroom. Since we don't have cameras in the courts, we've got to have more court watchers showing up. And
Well, that's very smart. That's very smart. I love that. And also, it debunks the idea that court is that scary. So you're saying if they can go in, volunteer, watch other cases, understand the jargon. Say if you're going to, like you said, self-represent, then understand the jargon a little more, understand the rhythm of it. That will help a lot. What is the book that your manual? I don't think we got the title.
Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough.
And do you have a relationship with your children? Are you able to see them a bit more now?
No, he's fully turned them, all three of them, against me. Yeah.
Oh, I have no words. I have no words. Oh, my heart goes to you. I am so sorry.
They were teens, and they know how they were raised, how I raised them. They know I was a good mother. Someone said they're not going to forget how good of a mother you were.
Hopefully one day they will turn around and come back and knock on your door and give you a big hug.
I don't know. Stay busy, practice the guitars, do the paintings.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap out our call today?
Well, don't be afraid to step for yourself. And if you have to go pro se, know that you're going to be verbally abused, harassed, and screamed at. And if you can handle that, you can handle anything. Okay. And chances are, right? Chances are you were, because that's what I put up with in my first marriage, right? So I was conditioned for verbal abuse. The opposing attorney, I'll tell you a funny story before we part, but he was very dramatic. He was always raising his hands, like Evita Peron, if anyone remembers her, right? Oh my gosh, you should have seen him, right? So I thought, well, if it's working for him, I'm going to try it too. So here we are in front of the child support judge, and I'm going, he misspoke, Your Honor. So I'm doing that, and he's looking at me. Then when we went into court the next time, he had his hands to his side. He did not raise his hands at all.
Oh, that is very funny. You held up a mirror. Thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy your evening. We're starting our day here in Australia, and you're tucking into bed soon.
I totally appreciate
We're
you,
pretty
Brooke.
early.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. Sharing a bit of your knowledge, some of your story. Let it help some people or listeners out there hearing this as well, giving them some strength to keep going. Whatever you can take away from it, hopefully there'll be some positive out of that.
And you live to irritate.
That's a good message. That is quite funny. Thank you again, and good night, and good morning here to Aussies.
Thank you so much. Good morning.